Hi, my name is Garrett Christopher, and this is my YouTube channel, Garrett's Take. I've been talking about homelessness, and I'm going to do a little aside here just because I'm still waiting on the city in which I reside to get back to me on doing a ride-along for that. By the way, please visit my other YouTube channels, Garrett's Movie Take and Garrett's Sports Take. Garrett's Movie Take, I talk about movies that I love, and I'm going to try and talk you into watching them at least, and maybe loving them as well. In the Garrett's Sports Take, I'm talking about football mostly. Just finished up with the 2021 Dodgers season. They lost in 6 games to the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, so please check those things out. Also, you can see more about me and find out more about me, rather, at GaretChristopher.com. I'm a self-published author. I've got a 5th book on the way. It's the first in a sci-fi series, part 1 of The Takeover. I'm very excited about it. I'm only about a week away, I think, from being able to release that. And also an audiobook. So I've got 2 other audiobooks available on Audible and iTunes. And we'll also have this part 1, which is also finished, just waiting for verification from Audible that it's good to go. And let's see, a weekly podcast available on Soundcloud and Spotify. I'm being eaten out here. And yeah, so I am in the San Diego Wilderness Park. And this is in between, like off of the 15 freeway and the 76, I believe. In any case, I've never come down here. I've come this way all the time. I used to have a convertible. Convertible Sebring, just like Michael from The Office. Anyway, so and I used to come down here in the summertime and just the valley and all that is really, really cool. Like, but I've never come down here before. Today I thought, what the heck? I'll come down and check things out, and it's really cool. So I thought I'd share it with you. So what I want to talk about, and it's just kind of off the cuff, I guess, a little bit. So I have 3 grown children, right? They range from 30 down to 24, and so at this point they're digging in with their own lives and things of that nature. And but what do you do when a child, no matter how old, right? But no, that's not true. Let's say from 11, 12, 13 up to 19, 20, 21 years old. So adolescence, right? Up into late teens and young adult. What do you do when they go astray? What do you do when they are trapped in something they shouldn't be involved with, be it drugs, be it whatever, just, whatever. And if you're a parent, or if you're a child, a kid, a young adult that's maybe going through something or been through something before, what do you do at that point with that? You hear about this tough love situation with parents, and I just gotta let them do this and do that. And you know what? I know where this is coming from. So I have another book. It's not released yet. It's called Hunter, and Hunter is about a few things, but there's a family dynamic. There's 2 parents and 2 young adults and 1 high schooler. And the high schooler, Hunter, finds out that his eldest sibling, Stephen, has a drug issue, has a drug problem. That's where this is coming from. Okay. So the whole thing with the parents is Stephen still lives at home, and there's a middle child, Paige, who knows about Stephen's problem, but he wasn't sure what to do as far as telling the parents. The parents don't seem to be aware of this. I think that they have some semblance of an idea that there's something going on, but they're not quite sure, that it's that serious, right? They think it's more so just him being a 23-year-old kid that can't seem to find a direction, can't seem to find his way. In any case, so that's where this is coming from. Now it all makes sense. But I didn't really go through that too much with my kids. Not that there weren't issues, and not that I'm a perfect parent. I'm far from it. But yeah, as far as like whatever dabbling they had and have with certain things that can be detrimental to whatever, to livelihood, either I wasn't aware, they thought I wasn't aware, or I didn't feel it was to the point where I needed to really get involved in intervention type of stuff, right? I would just kind of say things to them about this and that, whatever, and kind of plot out, how I should address this. Because here's how it goes. My 3 children, all 3 of them have my wife's looks, right? Thank goodness. All 3 of them have my stubbornness. Not thank goodness. So with that, there's a certain way to approach that kind of a child, right? So let's talk about that for a second. How do you approach that kid? I think it's different. I think it's different with each child. I only have 3. I don't know every child across the world, so I couldn't tell you every kid, but I can tell you my children. And I know that for me, it was a matter of addressing each one a little bit differently. With my son, it was one way. And with my 2 daughters, it was a different way for the 2 of them. So I think in the event that things come up where as a parent you want to get involved because you can see that they need to be kind of pulled back a little bit, or they need that safety net, or they need that kind word, or they need something a little stronger to kind of like make them pull the reins in a little bit, right? It's all different because they all react a little differently with that. But what do you do when the situation is bad? And again, thank goodness I never had to deal with this as far as I know. Now, who knows, 20 years from now, there's things I find out now that my kids did when they were in high school or junior high that I didn't know about. And then one of them says, oh yeah, you didn't know that? That happened all the time. Like I found out my son used to go joyriding in his freshman year in high school and didn't know. There was an extra car at the house. We lived about half a mile away from the high school. And yeah, he and his buddies used to go joyriding in the car during school time. Didn't know until much later. Didn't know too much later that he used to sneak out. And then one of his sisters would let him back in the middle of the night. Didn't know all this until much later. And they were all surprised that we didn't know this. But anyway, so if you're aware, or there is an awareness of something that's going on with that child, right? With that young adult, with that high schooler, what do you do? How involved should you get? And again, I think it's a matter of gauging that child, you know, and if you've been there with that kid since birth, or perhaps you are an adopted parent through another marriage, or through, you know, the fact that someone passed away and now you've taken over, or you've actually adopted a child. You want to get to know them enough to kind of like gauge what to do in these situations, right? But should you be afraid to push that kid away if what they're doing is severe and they're just not responding to anything that you're doing, anything that you're saying? Yeah, how far should you push it? The tough love situation. I must say, I as a parent, I strayed away from the tough love. My kids would tell you that's not true. They probably would tell you that I was very much an advocate of tough love. But as far as I'm concerned, I was definitely too soft in some areas. But then I think, I'm very wishy-washy, but then I think, well, if you push, especially with my kids, too much, they're headstrong, and they're definitely going to go opposite of, right? So perhaps I had just the right balance, and I think that's the key also. Balance of what to do with that child. Now right now I'm not talking about adults. I'm not talking about, you know, people my age or 30 or 40 years old. I'm really keying in on young adults, teenagers, and that kind of a thing. I know this problem doesn't matter what age you are. I get that. But right now, again, because I'm editing this book, and hopefully we'll release it sometime next year. And it's not about the book. I kept thinking, why am I thinking about this? This is why. So this wilderness behind me, and I hadn't planned on this either. I just saw it as I was driving to my next destination. It's a little dry. It's got rocks and trees, and there's all kinds of stuff, and I wouldn't really want to walk through it barefoot because there's probably snakes out there. And it's not some crazy wilderness, but it's a wilderness park. So let's pretend there are lions and tigers, oh my, out there as well, right? What's ahead? What's in front? As we've been around for a while, I know more of the end from the beginning than my children do, because I've seen some of these things before. Now, outcomes can be different, but in most cases it's more of the same, right? If you don't make that car payment, your credit gets hit. If you partake in this particular event, this is what's going to happen with that, right? And because I've done it, or because I've seen it done, I know the outcome. Where with the child, I'm old, they don't feel it's going to go that way, they're smarter than I am, you know, all these things. If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. And it's just like, Dad, it's not going to happen to me like that. Yeah. Come to find out, it happens just like that, which they'll never admit to, of course, but it happens just like that. So for those times that we know the end from the beginning, how much do we let them wade in the water? How much do we let them kind of get in there and sometimes gurgle a little bit when perhaps their feet are weighted down too much to swim properly and to get through that? And how much can you really stand back and watch this take place without rescuing this child, this young adult, this teenager? But then if you do, they're not taught that lesson. and they don't get the experience of going through whatever it is that they're going through. So what do? I am not a fan of just hands up, you're 18, there you go. Now I can say this, and this is going to sound bad, and this is going to sound very chauvinistic. With my son, I had an easier time disciplining him. I had an easier time when he moved out after high school. He went out right after high school, went straight to college and lived on his own. He couldn't wait, right, to have his own identity, right, in his own place. I didn't have a real problem with that. Mama did, definitely. With me, I didn't. I was not up at night wondering what he was doing. I knew what he was doing. With my daughters, different deal. With my youngest, went to South Carolina for a couple of years. I had to sign off on it, and there were some things that my wife and her mom did that definitely put me at ease with that switch, that change. We're on the West Coast. She was all the way in, going to be all the way in South Carolina, and she's a little bitty thing. I mean, she's like 5 feet tall and weighs. Trust me, I can pick up a little grain of sand, and it weighs more than she does. So that was tough. But I also knew that it was going to be very beneficial for her to be on her own, for her growth, mentally, spiritually, all that kind of a thing. Did it benefit her? I don't know. On the end, at first, when we came back to California, she came back out here to go to school after a couple of years out there in South Carolina. I felt like it really had. Now we're a few years past that, and I don't know. I think what matters most is how does she feel about it. I don't know if she feels that it really helped her growth, right? And now that I look at it, and we're 2-3 years past when she came back to California, maybe she would ended up at the same spot if she'd stayed out here, lived in the house, or even got a little place outside, close to, perhaps. She'd have to answer that. The middle kid, she's been through the ringer on a few things, and she's probably, and she wouldn't want to hear this, but she's probably more like me in temperament than any one of them. So her and I go at odds quite a bit, right? Just like myself and my mother, consistently, because we're so alike, right? Two heads are better than one. Not always. Not as far as I'm concerned, right? And that's how my middle kid feels, and that's how my mother feels. Nah, I could do it on my own. So let's wrap this up. I hope you like the view, by the way. What do you do when your child, your young adult, your teenager, has put you in a corner, or has set you in a situation where you have to make a decision? Do I tough love this kid, or do I step in and rescue them? Do what feels right at that moment. Don't listen to anyone else. Don't listen to anyone else except perhaps your spouse, right? The other parent of that child. It doesn't matter, grandma, auntie, sister, brother, whatever. It's your child. Do what you think is right. Trust me, you've made tons of mistakes raising them. Tons. And you've done a lot of things correctly as well. So this may be another correct decision. It may be another mistake. Either way, you run with it. Go with it. Trust me, you'll have more opportunities to either do it right or do it wrong, right? So whatever feels right, go with it. But the counsel from, again, that parent, that sister, that parishioner, whomever, isn't always right, because you're the one that has to live with that decision, you and that child. And if you can't sleep at night, if you don't feel right about that kid perhaps going homeless, right? About that kid doing things, ruining their credit, ruining relationships, getting kicked out of their apartment, whatever, because, well, you need to learn. But let me ask you a question. When they're 40 and you're 60, that scenario, is it really going to benefit them? Is it really going to benefit them? And when you think about the love that you have for that kid, when does it surface the most? At Thanksgiving? At Christmas? Or does it surface the most when there's something drastic going on? And what do? When that kid is hurting, whether when they're little or when they're older, or when they're 40 and you're 60, 65, whatever, what do you do when they're hurting? Hang the phone up? Tell them that they just need to stay on that side of the room? Or do you hug them? Pull them in close and talk to them. Assure them if it's going to be okay. I'm pretty sure I'm being too soft. That's okay. Because at the end of the day, I think I'll be able to live with that. You know what I mean? Yes, we need to have a certain level of tough love. I get it. And again, gauge your kids. In my kids' case, they're headstrong enough to butt their heads against the wall several times, no matter what I say. Whether I hug them or not, they're going to do it. So I'm not really concerned about them going through and learning and, being forced some level of responsibility. They're going to do that. They've got that from me, right? Trust me. If I told you all the things I did when I was their age, that's another thing. Remember what you did when you were their age, the things that you got caught up on. And I know it's a matter of, I don't want you to fall in the same trap. They're probably just like you, and they're probably going to do it just because you did it, just like when your parents told you the same thing, right? Gauge your kid. Gauge your kid and look at the bigger picture. And don't be stubborn, because they're being stubborn. I don't think it makes any sense to be stubborn on your end like that, right? What do you think? I really want to know. And not just Rich. I want all of you, whoever watches this, listens to this, I want to know what you think about this. I've thought about that for 30 years, Still don't have an answer. But I'm a little soft. I'm okay with that. Tough love. It's a tough gig. Hey, I'm Garet Christopher. I want to thank you for checking this out. And again, hope you really enjoyed this scenery. It's really, really cool. Heck, I might do my sports take from this place also. I don't know. We'll see. Take care. GoPro, stop recording.